episode of the Pop Shock podcast. This week we are here to talk about the Batman. I am Dan and I am joined by Massimo.
Hello, it's me, your favourite Italian stallion. I don't know why I went with that, but we're gonna keep it in.
Listen, I think you're wearing a pony, but we'll say stallion. It's fine.
All right, hang on a minute.
And we're also joined by Jerd the Nerd. How's it going, Jerd?
Hello, it's me, your favourite Irish donkey. I don't know. We don't really have an animal that's like an Irish animal. I'm a leprechaun. I don't know. What's the crack?
Yeah, so we all saw the Batman. I think most folk out there saw the Batman because I think it has made a fair amount of money at the box office.
I've seen it at midnight release. It was
yes, Massimo went to midnight release, which I'm sure we'll get into the gory details of that. I've seen it twice, and Jerd got to see it, even though he was a bit scared of the old Rona stopping him from doing so. But
I was clean. But
yeah, we've all seen the movie. So, right, first of all, Massimo, how was the midnight screening? How was the atmosphere? How was your poor suffering girlfriend at that time when she had to work like 4 hours later? How did it all go?
Yeah, I had a great time. Beth knows about it, but no, it was good. It was really, really busy, and like
was it the Lux at the Key?
It was the Lux. Yeah, it was a lot of Lux screenings, so with a recliner seating and all that kind of jazz. And there was 7 midnight screenings going on all at the same time.
Oof.
Right? It was originally 4 when we booked our tickets, and then it went up to 7. I checked on it. But yeah, no, it was an interesting experience. I didn't really. So here's the thing: I went to go see Spider-Man: No Way Home at 10 a.m. when it first came out as well, and the experience is highly different between the two of them. Because there was a lot more fanfare for Spider-Man: No Way Home. I saw a lot more people dressed up and having that thing. And there was a lot more buzz. For the Batman, it was definitely there was a lot of people there. But there wasn't as much of an atmosphere, if you know what I mean. Like it wasn't as like grandiose as Spider-Man.
I wonder if you could argue though that's because of the difference in the audience for these characters. Batman fans seem to be a wee bit maybe take themselves a wee bit more seriously as well. You know, and I also think the tone of the film, the new Batman movie is way more somber than No Way Home is.
Very true.
So yeah, I guess that's an aspect of it as well.
But yeah, no,
like Spider-Man is like a kids movie. You know, it's a great kids movie, but this movie, you know, it's a super movie for children. This is not a kids movie, you know, by any stretch.
No,
100% from the start.
So that's the difference, I guess.
There was a mother and young kid at my screen, and every time it got a bit rough, I was like, "Fucking hell, that kid is going to learn some stuff."
No, but it was a good experience regardless. It was quite nice. I applaud the audience staff at the time who were on for that sort of shift. Because it was mayhem. But it was a packed out screening. It was really good, and it was a fantastic opening night in my opinion. Not to obviously I will compare it to Spider-Man, but I'll do that with all films because that was an incredible first kind of screening. But yeah, the Batman had it was a very, very positive reception from when I was coming out and I was seeing people talking and stuff like that. It was a very positive.
Jerd, how was your experience? Because you are obviously in a different part of the world for us, so I've never been to Cinema on Island. So how and with the whole COVID thing, did you have it booked in advance? Were you just like counting down the days to take lateral flow tests so you could be like, right, I know what day
I took lateral flow test. I have no idea what that is. I think I might have heard that expression once.
Did you take LFTs?
Antigen. Well, maybe we just call them antigen over here.
Right.
I would call them lateral flows,
so I just took one. So my housemate got it like last week, but then he just about tested negative, and he was a couple of days before. But so I saved my test until Friday. Took one Friday evening, and I took one Saturday morning, and I was negative on both. So I was like, "Sam, we'll go." So I went like in the middle of the day. Like I went at about I think it was 1:30, and there was, as I was saying, there was like a mother and son. There was like a group of kids. And then there was just like a handful of other people. I could have went to IMAX, but that seemed to be packed.
Drastically different because mine was all adults because it was a Thursday night at midnight. So like,
oh yeah, you couldn't have kids up that late.
Yeah,
was your cinema hall full, Jerd?
No, like literally there was I'd say 20 max. Like because the IMAX was packed out. That I was like I don't want like even still with COVID. I'm like I don't want to sit right beside a fucking million people. So I was delighted. It was weird. It was sunny here, but it was freezing inside the cinema. It was a cold day. So yeah, like look, I'm a massive Spider-Man fan. I was fucking giddy as a kid for Spider-Man. I'd not to get too far ahead. I'd say this is a better film, but I'd still love Spider-Man. So there's
Yeah.
very different things. And it's some people like I was kind of worried because there was a group of like teenagers there. But I guess there was fuck all people there, so it was just dead silent the whole way through. I think I'm the only one who laughed. Like, like any of the reactions were coming from me, maybe.
I had two very different experiences. I went on Friday night at 7 o'clock or something to the Lux, and that was mobbed. You know, when you got in, there was queues. It was really busy. Once we got seats, it was fine, and then we had great seats right in the middle of the hall, like right in the middle, that way and that way. It was
That was the same
house because I booked it, you know, so it's tickets. And the reactions were great. Like certain scenes, which we will get into, the few scenes of levity that you get, there was a wee laugh here and there. There was people going, "Oh, holy shit!" when the Batmobile came out. You know, there was the odd reaction round the room. Whereas I seen it again on Saturday with my parents and seen it in the city centre at the View at about 4 o'clock, and dead silence the whole movie. Yeah. There was no atmosphere, which was kind of good for me because I'd already seen it the night before and got that out of it. So the second time I wanted to just watch the movie and take it in again and focus on what was going on the screen. So in a way it worked out because it meant I could just, you know, I wasn't distracted by the audience. I could just, you know, watch what I was watching. But yeah, it was just two very different experiences, which was interesting.
What did your parents think of it?
They said it was too long.
Using my mic. Huh?
They said it was too long.
And how do they feel about superhero films normally?
So my dad loves it. My dad loves the Marvel films.
Oh, really?
He loves superhero shit. My mum hates that shit. But me and my dad convinced her to go because we were like, this is not a traditional superhero film. This is a detective film. You like Seven, you like Zodiac, you'll like this. You know, we were trying to
spot on though. You know what I mean?
Trying to pitch it to her that way, and then my wee sister happened to be off work as well, so it turned out to be family day out with the 4 days. Yeah, but the night before, like, me and Courtney loved it, and then the drive home we were going, oh my god, it was amazing. We're saying, is it better than The Dark Knight, which I'm sure is something we'll get to later. You know, we're having all these conversations about how much we enjoyed it, and the drive home the other day, it was just, oh, that was a bit long, wasn't it? Or it took itself a bit seriously. That was what you all talking about? Yeah, did you watch the same film? But I guess this Batman, this take on the character is going to divide people. You know,
I mean, I've had a few discussions.
Represent more the general audience, I guess, whereas me and Courtney represent geeks that are into that shit, you know, and that's the difference, I guess.
I've had a few conversations with people that I know who are kind of, like I said, nerdy, kind of geeky people, and I've had some interesting conversations about that. And I definitely feel like when we get to kind of the opinions of the film itself, I definitely want to posit some stuff that I didn't think about then, and having about 2 or 3 days to digest it is, you know, changed my opinion a little bit on certain things.
Right. So, well, just before we go into that, we spoke about our experience in the cinema, but what was your actual thoughts on the film? Just a kind of brief. What was your first takeaway when you were walking into the cinema? Like I'm saying, we were ranting about we loved it the way home. Did you have that same buzz after seeing it? We'll go to Jerd first because you put in the chat right away on the way out. Was it holy shit? That was amazing or something?
I was trying to go for the play on the Holy Metal Batman or Holy Shit Batman. That was stellar, is what my Instagram post was. Yeah, I just thought it was fucking great. I'm always one for like picking out little things, but like I didn't really. It was only afterwards, and there was a couple of things in it where I was like, "Well, what about that?" We can go into that later, but thought it was fucking great. And again, massive Spider-Man fan. I couldn't say this wasn't a better film than Spider-Man 3. Although, even seeing clips of the 3 Spider-Men together, like during the week, I was giggling. I was like, "Oh my god, this is brilliant! We got this." But it was just fucking brilliant.
I was going to say, you're obviously not that much of a DC guy. You're more a Marvel guy. So was this? What did you expect going in? Was it better than you thought it was going to be? Did it just meet the hype of what you thought it was going to be? You know,
kind of thought what I thought it. I just kind of thought it'd be really solid, sturdy fucking film. I was expecting like high class cinema kind of thing. And I really enjoyed the length of it. I literally could have watched another hour, even though I was kind of bursting for the jacks at one point. But like, yeah, I had a burrito at the start of it, so I was happy anyway. Yeah, like literally, I just thought it was great.
It's definitely the most Kino Batman that they've made. You know, it's the most Ryan Gosling Batman that they've made. Like Ryan Gosling could have played that version of Bruce Wayne. I thought, you know, how staunch and silent it was, and but don't get me wrong, I thought Pattinson was great. But we'll get into that in a sec. Mass, what was your general thoughts on the way out of the cinema?
I really did like it. I think it was 40 minutes too long.
Really? Okay.
I
Okay.
genuinely, I have some thoughts. I think it was the first 2 and almost a half hours are a perfectly paced film that have all of the clues given to the audience to make sure the audience is able to solve the mystery.
Mm-hmm.
It's none of this ham-fisted stuff where like there's leaps in logic there.
Yeah.
Well, apart from the bat and the rat and the falcon and all that kind of stuff, that was my only issue.
I was like,
But,
yeah, it's, rabbit wings is a bat. It's
Right,
not
bat,
a
yeah,
falcon.
it's not a falcon. But I guess technically within the context of the film, it is a falcon because Falcone, he is the rat, he's the rat with wings, is Falcone.
And also,
that
it's
makes
not
sense.
above Riddler to
Riddler,
put red herrings
yeah,
into his
exactly,
stuff.
yeah.
You know, he will try and throw you. Like,
Yeah, arguably he's the guy who he apparently his whole stick is riddles. Yet if someone gets his riddle right too quickly, he will change it at the last minute.
Right,
That is
yeah.
his thing. I understand that, but I think, in my opinion, I did enjoy it. I really thought it was fantastic. It was a phenomenal showcase of how you do a superhero film without making it feel like a superhero film, where you had Batman being a detective, being the world's greatest detective, solving actual clues and doing actual mysteries and having that actual part of his arsenal instead of him going around and just kicking people and punching people, which he did do and there was plenty of.
Yeah.
Arguably, I think there should have been more fight scene choreography stuff, but every frame of that film felt like it could be easily pulled out of a comic book.
Yeah.
And I thought that was fantastic. But again, I will say it felt 40 minutes too long. But if you want proper in-depth and stuff like that, you can come back round to me and explain why I think it was slightly too long.
First of all, you can give me a retort, but first of all, I just want to give you a wee response. And I disagree. I think it was right. How do I put this? Maybe not 40 minutes too long. I think 95% of what was there was great, and it was maybe about 5%.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm just going to give away my rating now. We'll do ratings at the end, I guess. But that's why I don't give it a 10 out of 10. I would give it a 9 out of 10. Because to be a 10, for me, there has to be no wasted time. You know, every minute has to be used to the full extent.
It has to be tight as possible. Yeah.
And it didn't quite reach that, but it was fucking close. You know, it was like 95% of the way there. So, you know, that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, again, we'll go into where you would rank it, I guess, later. But see the fact that people are even having the conversation of whether this is the best Batman film.
It shows how good it was.
Shows how great it is. You know,
Yeah.
the fact that conversation has been had, and this is a new Batman being rebooted in an era where there's about 5 other Batman on the go. You know, you've got
literally
versions. You've got Ben Affleck that's kind of maybe a new
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton, right? You've got all this going on, and the fact that this came out and we're having this conversation, that is this the best? Not only one of the best comic book films, but is it better than what many consider to be the best comic book film of all time? You know, The Dark Knight. The fact that discussion is even being had, I think, is a testament to Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson and everybody else that made this film.
Are you wanted to do ratings quickly, Dan?
Sure. Yeah, let's put that out. Oh, my camera froze, but better than while I sort my camera.
I would give. Jerd, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go and I'll say my thing at the end and retort to Dan's retort.
Yeah. I guess 9 out of 10. I'd say 9.5 out of 10. I'm even struggling to think what I had issues with, but
if we're doing
9.5.
If we're doing 0.5s, then I'm right there with you. If we're going that far, then yeah, okay.
9.6.
9.99999.
Yeah. I had some little misgivings, and one that I didn't really cop until my nephew pointed it out to me. But yeah, I'm struggling to think of anything that I really had fault with, and any of the things I had fault with, I'm like, it doesn't fucking matter, like, you know. Compared to how good it was.
Massimo, are you right there with
mine is 8.5 to 9.
Okay.
I think I need to go see it again, in my opinion. Because I think I definitely agree that you get blinded by it. Was the same issue I had with Spider-Man, is that I'll be honest, first seeing Spider-Man, I really did enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
However, it was the hype of it, and then it just died down, and I went to go see it a second time and enjoyed it even more. I think if I go see the Batman a second time and I pick up on maybe some of the nuanced aspects of it, it could definitely push itself up until a 9, 9.5, even possibly a 10. But to start off, 8 out of 10. 8.5 probably, right. If we're going 0.5s, 8.5 out of 10. And it's purely because there are, as you said, with that whole thing of it being, it is one of the best Batman films, and in terms of the other ones, it definitely ranks high up there. However, there are certain aspects of it that I wish were just the smallest bit different. I would have made it so much more impactful for certain characters. And when we jump into maybe some of the characterization of certain characters, I will definitely say my 2 cents on that. But I think 8.5 out of 10, in my opinion.
Well, why don't we go there next? Let's just start with the main man. What did you make of Robert Pattinson's Batman? Because that was a contentious issue when it was cast and get into this film. So
fantastic Batman. Who knows about his Bruce Wayne? In my opinion, because the Bruce Wayne aspect not really explored in this film. There isn't that clear dichotomy between the two of them, if you know what I mean. Like Riddler says at the end, Riddler says there's a point where a character says the idea about this is your true face, this is not your mask, this is who you really are. And that's just for me, just liking it from that comic book aspect. I think that as Batman, fantastic in my opinion.
Well, speaking to the comics, so that was just quickly before I go to my next point. That was the main reason I loved this film. I love Year One. I love Long Halloween, and this is very much those comics retold with some New 52 stuff, some 0 Year stuff, but
which is good.
You know, which it's not a bad run. It's just not my favorite Batman. But yes, it pulled for some of my favorite source material, so that already made me bang up for it. The fact that some of my favourite movies of all time are crime noir stories like Seven and Zodiac, they're two of my favourite films ever. Silence of the Lambs also, there was kind of hints of that in there.
Oh, definitely.
Like that just appealed to me and what I'm into. Also like gangster shit, so the fact that it's the Maronis and then the Falcone and all the kind of gangster underbelly, the Penguin and stuff. Again, it just all of that just appeals to me. And also the reason I love Long Halloween is because it is a detective story that just happens to have Batman in it, and that's kind of how this felt more than it was a Batman movie. Although there was a characterization of Batman there, it was more about the kind of the mystery that was happening. In terms of Pattinson's Batman, I loved him. I loved everything he did with the character. I feel I've heard that criticism leveled a few times about good Batman, bad Bruce Wayne.
I wouldn't even say it's not bad Bruce Wayne. It's just that
I don't mean you. I just mean generally, on the internet. Matt, I take kind of umbrage with that because in the Batman Earth 1, they actually show the conversation between Alfred and Bruce, where Alfred sits Bruce down and says, "Listen, I know you think there'd make a difference out there, but you can make a difference in other ways." Ask Bruce Wayne. Don't ditch that character. Don't ditch that side of your personality altogether, because you can use that. That's a weapon and it's a tool, And him and Bruce kind of sit down and hash out how they can make him into a right. How can we make it so that nobody knows you're Batman? Right, act like a throwaway, carefree, devil-may-care playboy that falls asleep at business meetings. Right, okay, that's that one checked off. Which we've seen in Christian Bale's Batman. Right. Where can you put yourself as Bruce Wayne that can help you as Batman? And they kind of go through all these points, and it kind of justifies them creating that, dumb character of Bruce Wayne.
I wish they had more of that in my opinion, because obviously they had that conversation a little bit in the film where they talk about.
I feel like they've yet to do. I think that is what we're going to see in the next film. I think we've yet to go there.
Yeah.
That's very. You remember it's an early version of the character, and at this point he is very Kurt Cobain. Oh, I don't care. Just want to but an emo teenager. I think the point of this movie as well, a big part of it was showing what he can do as Batman and how maybe what he intended originally to be fear and be vengeance might not be the best course. By the end of the movie, it becomes kind of more of a beacon of hope, more of a positive figure. And he kind of realises that he can't just be vengeance because that doesn't really fix it in the long run. So, just to show, and I think it would also give Pattinson room to expand as an actor. I think to show that character expanding and growing and developing all the different sides of his personality, both as Bruce Wayne and as Batman, I think there's scope for that in the future. Which is why I don't really agree that he's a bad Bruce Wayne. I just think we've not got that
time to come
of the character yet.
You know what? For the reason,
I put it in the chat that's what fucking Matt Reeves said. He based him on Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
He has that kind of reserved element to him. The one bit that I thought he was great as Batman. I think it was not to mention too many other reviewers, but some reviewer was saying that they kind of did with Batman what they did with Joker in The Dark Knight. That he's what would this person be like if they were in the real world? True. And I liked how he was just fucking weird and odd and silent and hardly spoke. But at the same time, he was more of a character than I think Christian Bale was able to be in Batman Begins. But after that, he was never really a character. And I just thought he was good and quiet the whole way through it. Mm-hmm. The one scene I had issue with was when he was talking to Alfred, not to jump ahead too far, in the hospital, I thought his kind of the way he was speaking was like, I think he was even joking about it, like he was trying out his Batman voice, and people were like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like or whatever. It was coming out a bit weird, but the way he spoke so quietly, I think it's maybe because the character is troubled that he just felt very odd in that scene to me, and I wasn't sure if it worked or it was like maybe it works because the character's like that. I don't know.
That is the silliest part of this film. Like, as much as we're talking about how it's a realistic ground to take, and I agree it is, everybody in the movie talks like that.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Even James Gordon and sometimes Alfred, and they all talk like, and it's like, what? Got to speak up, mate, because I can't hear what you're saying. Like, there's a lot of that, and see when like the 8th character in a row speaks like that, you're starting to be like, this is starting to feel like a movie. That was the one part that kind of took me out of it, and I was like, this is starting to feel like a production rather than a real thing.
Yeah. I think my issue was, as I said, it's probably with the fact that they're going to explore now to Bruce Wayne in the future as a separate separate, but the two sides of the same coin of Batman. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. There were certain bits. There's a bit towards the end as well. The bit when he's in the rafters as well that isn't supposed to be funny, but is very funny.
With the adrenaline.
No, just before that, where he's the look on his face, where he's like.
We can't remember him up.
Yeah, I was fully gutted. It wasn't supposed to be funny, but I was fully gutting myself, and I'm like, "Come on, why would you like?" I get it, he's dazed and confused, right? But it's just like they linger on the shot for slightly too long, and there's like that. I'm like, okay.
I think all the parodies. Is it man? What's his fucking name? American comedian.
Pete Jones?
Pete Davidson. No.
Pete
Holmes.
Yeah, Pete Holmes with a college humor Batman.
Yeah, and he did like that's ruined Batman for me because like I kept just going. What's this really goofy character? I'm really horny, or like I can't even know what kind of quote any of the lines.
He's sleeping.
I couldn't think of it like a dirty
evidence.
So my thing was there were certain that in the last 30 minutes of the film there were certain choices stylistically with the character that kind of detract a little bit from it. But overall, I think you're right, Dan. It is drawn heavily from those inspirations, and as I said before, the free comic that they gave out at the Odeon for seeing it is a reprint of the first issue of Long Halloween with a quite actually really cool variant cover, which is quite cool.
Who's the art by?
I don't actually know. It doesn't actually tell you who the variant cover is from. I don't think. Unless it doesn't say. No, it doesn't. Just tells you Loeb and Sale. So I don't know if this is maybe.
So are they then? Is it just that first issue, or are they going to re-release it?
Just the first issue, and then you've got the classic in the back where they advertise more DC novels. So it's literally the first issue of Long Halloween.
If they were smart, they'd just re-release it issue by issue again.
So it says to be continued in a Long Halloween graphic novel. So it's
okay, yeah.
So one other aspect of this character, this version of Batman that I really liked was the super extended scenes of dialogue with him as Batman.
Yes,
we don't get that in other movies. It's like, right, Bruce Wayne has the dialogue scenes and Batman has the action scenes, and it was very split between the two. And this, because he's Batman 95% of the film, we only see his mask off about 3 times. I really enjoyed seeing this 6-foot demon having a conversation with a cop, at a crime scene. I really appreciated it, and the way it was shot by Greg Fraser.
It was so good as well for the fact that Batman is in the comics is funny.
Yeah,
he is a wiry character. His thing is he is sarcastic with his humor, and a lot of the versions of that previously don't give him that bit of humor to him. And this version gave him back his humor
with thumb drive.
Yeah, thumb drive, and even when he's talking to Martinez, the cop or whatever, and like just the expressions in his face. Someone will say something, and he'll turn and look at them, and it's like. And
that moment at the start when the mayor's dead and he's just standing there, and some forensic guy's trying to get around. He's like, "Excuse me," and it's just this massive guy with blonde hair in the corner of the room. Like the absurdity of it, it brings a bit of levity, which you do need in a film this dark. And also, there was another kind of joke that happened, which, when you actually think about it, did have a kind of cultural reference to it. So is it Martinez, the Hispanic cop that's there?
The carpet is it carpet?
So yeah. So very early on, and that same scene at the start when Batman's walking in, he's like, "Whoa, where are you going? This is police business. Get to you, creep!" Right? and he treats him like a freak, right? And he actually calls him a freak. Later on, when he sees Bruce Wayne at the funeral, he's like, Mr. Wayne, how you doing?" And obviously that got a laugh, right? But see, when you think about it, it does illustrate that, see, when people think you're somebody important, they're super nice to you. See, when they don't, you're a freak. Get out of my sight.
Exactly,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
And I really that kind of dynamic really put me in mind of Flash Thompson and the way he treats Peter
Spider-Man
in the Tom Holland films.
Ah,
And
yeah.
again, when you think about
Hey,
it,
dickwad.
yeah, right. Like
Penis Parker.
He just inspires me to be a better person. Hey,
He's a-
dickwad. Sorry.
he's a Spider-Man fanboy because Spider-Man in that universe helped save the world and he is an important character. Peter Parker is, as far as he knows, just a douchebag in his class and nobody, so he doesn't
Yeah.
he have the same respect. And it's it's mirrored here. And I was actually quoting the points on the way home. She was like, yeah, because when people care, when people know who you are, they want to be nice to you, but if they don't know who you are and think you're just a weirdo, then they'll treat you like shit. And yeah, so even though that was a joke, it was a wee bit kind of social commentary, I thought.
Yeah, it was. I think for me as well, the supporting cast also made this film and this Batman feel a lot more grounded and realistic. Like, honestly, I didn't know how Zoe Kravitz was going to be as Catwoman. I've only seen her a few things before.
Mm-hmm.
I liked her interpretation of Selina Kyle. I think that mask is fucking stupid, and they should have just progressed to the actual version of the comic book one at some point. I just didn't. I was like, it just didn't make any sense to me. I was like, either just wear a normal balaclava or not a balaclava that makes it look like you have weird cat ears and like a thing. In my opinion, go towards the comic book accurate mask. But that's
the only thing. So I think Zoe Kravitz nailed it. I think she was exactly what she had to be for that character in that movie. I didn't have a problem with the mask. I thought she looked great. I thought she was brilliant in the action sequences. I have no criticisms of her. My only criticism is more with the critics. Some of the early reviews I read, they said that Selina Kyle in some scenes steals the spotlight away from Batman. I never felt that at all. But maybe that, maybe that's just me. But I never felt that at all. I was like people were like, "Oh, Selina's a more interesting character in this than Bruce Wayne." And I was like,
I wouldn't say that.
But I don't know if I could go that far. Like, they were both great. They both did what they had to do and brought these characters to life very well. But I never felt that.
I didn't favour either.
Again, the only issue was that literally for me was the mask, because I was like, if you're a cat burglar, you're not going to have something that just covers this. It was like the proportions of it were just weird, in my opinion. I think if it was just like a classic balaclava, that
it would also fall off very easily in a fight.
That was the logistics of it.
If somebody grabbed that, it's coming off.
I know we're talking about a giant guy who roams around in a bat costume, but the logistics of like the mask for me were a bit off, and I was like, if they progressed that point, or they gave her like a kind of like padded motorcycle helmet style mask similar to Bruce's, I think that would be a lot better. But that's my opinion overall. But I think other than that, our characterization was phenomenal. I thought the character was really interesting. I'm not overly familiar with Selina Kyle in the comics. Like, I know little bits of pieces of her, but I felt like Kravitz brought her own version of that to the performance, which resulted in like a interesting and actually mystique to the character. That, there's like that false mystique you get where it's like, oh, they're trying to make this character mysterious and interesting. I'm like, no, this character generally was mysterious and interesting, and it definitely worked.
I also thought their chemistry, Patterson and Kravitz's chemistry was on point. I never felt like when they kissed, it didn't feel. I hate when they do that and it feels forced. I hate when it feels cringy.
It was a surprise. She just kind of like went for it. Like,
I felt I kind of seen it coming, because I felt the tension between them building up, and I thought it was written and acted perfectly to the point that it didn't feel out of place, it didn't feel forced, it didn't feel like we got a male and a female character, they have to kiss. It felt justified. It felt it didn't feel weird or.
I think it was. To me, it was kind of it brought back, not that like, I guess it's exactly similar, but it had that level. Maybe not as exactly, but the vibe of Michelle Pfeiffer and
Michael
Keaton in the first film. I think that's probably like affected a lot of people. They're like, "Whoa, what's going on here? This is interesting." Their vibe back in the day. But that scene where like he's holding her up against the wall and like the two of them are just kind of quiet, like it kind of lingers, but they kind of have to because they're staying quiet. I was like, there's a lot of tension there, and I was like.
That is almost also ripped out of one of the comics. There's a scene on Long Halloween that happens, and he puts a hand over the mouth and he's like, shh, and then when they go back to being, having
the bat and the cat,
situational wise, I just thought it was kind of like, okay, they have to stay quiet, but there's something kind of like, it's a bit hot, like there's a bit of a vibe there. Like,
are we doing spoilers? Because I feel like something I really want to mention is spoilerific about.
At this point, if you've not seen it, go and see it. But we're going to go spoilers.
So my opinion is when Selina first meets Falcone, and we construe that for fear of meeting Falcone, and then with the reveal later on, we realise that it isn't fear, it's anger. I thought that was phenomenally acted.
Yes.
I was like, that is a phenomenal bit of, like, you realise when you watch it, like, holy shit, that's not because she's scared of him, that's because she wants to fucking kill this guy,
Yeah.
and is using every ounce of her body to pull back and not murder him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's phenomenal, because that's like, you wouldn't, I said, you know, the clues are there, but you wouldn't be able to tell immediately, in my opinion, but I thought it was a very, very nuanced part of the performance.
I kind of picked up that that he was going to be our dad, you know, as soon as that scene happened, because I've read The Long Halloween, and that's the case in that comic. So I did see that coming. I thought John Turturro gave a very reserved and classic performance as Falcone.
Terrifying.
He's always great.
Yeah, but he was subtly terrifying. You know, he wasn't overtly terrifying. It was more a kind of harboured terror that he had within him. But yeah, I mean, we could go through all the side characters. We can go to Alfred and Penguin and stuff. But I think my favourite was Gordon.
Gordon was for
Jeffrey Wright's Gordon. I mean, Jeffrey Wright's a great actor. That's no surprise, right? But specifically their chemistry together. See the way they work together through these cases.
The scene where he's running through the police station, the bit the police station gets caught and all that. Fantastic. One of my favourite scenes in the film, actually.
Yeah.
But just that moment where he's like, "You're gonna have to punch me in the face and take the key," and I'm like, "That is fucking like that's amazing." I just love it. It's just like,
like as much right. So the kind of I think the bar that's obviously set for Gordon is Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman played a blinder as Gordon in the Nolan films, but to me in those movies, Gordon felt like, as much as Alfred felt like a surrogate father, Gordon kind of felt like a surrogate father to Bruce for quite a lot of that. That was their relation, their dynamic in those movies was less. As equals and more like mentor and
mentee,
protege or whatever. Whereas in this movie, he felt like an older brother to this Batman, and it felt like two comrades on the same, wanting the same thing and going through their own different ways together. Which, in my opinion, that's how Gordon should be. That's how he is in year one and in different comics. That's my kind of favourite version.
Well, that's the thing as well. Like even the chief of police refers to him as your guy.
Yeah.
He refers to Batman as, you're not like, oh, vigilante. Because everyone knows that's Gordon and Batman. Gordon, Batman is Gordon's friend, vigilante, partner, whatever it is. But he gets referred to as your guy, which, as you said, makes it a big change, because you said it's not mentor mentee, not mentor protege. It's definitely brothers in arms.
Yeah,
and it definitely changes the dynamic of the character from what we've seen on screen before, and a lot more closer to the comic version.
Yeah, I love that dynamic.
I think he just sounded exactly like Jeffrey Wright, but Jeffrey Wright has fantastic presence, so I was like, yeah, cool. He could literally do anything. I'd be interested in watching it.
100%. How did you feel about a lot of people? I've heard a lot of people saying that Andy Serkis as Alfred was somewhat underused. How did you feel about him and their relationship?
Yeah, he seemed to be missing from the final act. It seemed like it was just kind of, he was forgotten about by the very end after that hospital scene.
They Professor X'd him.
yeah.
I don't know what to do.
So my kind of situation with it, I didn't. So as soon as he walked out for that lift, the first time we seen Alfred, I was like, he looks like Earth One Alfred. That's awesome. He's got the beard. He's got the stick.
Yeah.
This guy's been about. He's seen some shit. He's been in the SAS. He knows how to fight. He probably lost his leg. Or a part of his leg at war. Or you can kind of see all that just from his entrance.
So this film, I thought, see the bit with the explosion in the package.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to kill him.
I've heard a lot of people say that.
Because I was like feeling that there's a few moments in this where I thought they were going to go one direction and went another. This bit in particular with Alfred and the explosive package and stuff like that was meant for Bruce. I felt, I was like, I could definitely see them doing this. They could kill off the character.
Yeah.
I was not out of the realm of possibility. And up until we saw him in the hospital, then I thought, oh, he's fucking dead. I turned it like Bethany was home, like, fuck, like they've just killed Alfred.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily know if I would say that Alfred was underused in this movie, because I don't know where else they could have put him in. But if they had killed him off, I would have been pissed off, because I'd have been like, what a waste of Andy Serkis,
Again.
That would have annoyed me. Yeah, again, right? So, yeah. But yeah, like obviously Alfred will have more to do in the future movies, and that's great. But if they killed him off, I'd have probably been a bit more like sad about it. But that. So when he walked out the last night, first thing I thought, he looks great. But their conversation and their dynamic in that scene, I didn't love. I didn't really buy their history yet. But by the time we got to that scene in the hospital where he was sitting at his bedside and he said, "You lied to me," and they had that conversation about his dad, and then by the end they're holding hands and he's telling him that the fear that he felt because he nearly lost somebody else that he loved. I bought all of it, and I was like, right, okay, there is history. They were just bottling it all up inside, and this is just it coming out because now he's realising that he's never losing his other dad, really, his second father figure. I really, in hindsight, it was really effective because it wasn't lack of writing or lack of acting. It was because these two guys are manly men and would keep our feelings inside. But holy shit, you nearly died, and that really upset
exactly.
me. And it all kind of came out, and it was effective in hindsight that way. I thought very subtle and not super, very non-superhero-esque to not be explicit with shit like that and to hold some stuff back. But
was
effective.
Nice.
It was effective.
It was very true to both of their characters, in my opinion, because Bruce Wayne and Alfred have such a they've such a testing relationship because in the comics, Alfred is very much his father figure and Bruce struggles to admit that, and Alfred sees him as son, and it's the moments of crisis a lot of time in the comics because Alfred is currently dead in DC. He's been dead for a wee while now, and the hole that he's left has been massively impactful within the Batman storyline. But in terms of that, it's only in these points of crisis that their true feelings of father son and that lovingness comes out to one another. You see it happen all the time with other characters with the Batman mythos, and I feel like, as you said, Dan, they captured it expertly with that hospital scene.
Yeah, it was very, very good writing and very just fair play for not showing all your cards too soon, and letting the audience kind of figure that out themselves, put shit like that, emotional shit, not just like mystery story shit, but actual like emotional character histories and stuff together in your head, because even though this movie 3 years long and to be any longer it would have been brutal, you can tell you don't need to see all their past history, to know that they've got to this point. You can kind of put it together yourself, and that's good writing, I think.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
So who else is?
Well, we've covered the goodies.
I was going to say, we're going to Paul Dano in a minute, but I think we should maybe do Penguin first.
Penguin.
Colin Farrell's unrecognisable.
You would never know it was him unless you got told. You would never know it was phenomenal. No. And I also like the wee nod as well when they capture him and they have him in the handcuffs and the.
And you want to win?
The Penguin one.
Brilliant.
Phenomenal. Perfect.
And again, he gave a few funny lines which were by that point.
Great.
I got Tony Soprano vibes from him. I don't know if it was just the way and the hair, but it definitely put me in mind of Gandolfini.
It's such a dichotomy because we've only ever seen the Penguin as I'm the Penguin. I'm a crazy madman who was raised by penguins. This is a white collar criminal who, because of the way he looks, because of his stout nature, because of the scars across his face, got this nickname.
Yeah,
and I'm like, what a completely dichotomous relationship with every other version we've seen of him before, regardless if that's in Gotham or in the Burton Batman films or the fucking original 66 series, whatever it is. You're showing a version of the Penguin that is actually, you could definitely see this man is rising up to Gotham Underworld and take control of a power vacuum, and why he is the top of the criminal food chain.
That was something else I was going to mention, in terms of speaking to characterization without explicitly showing it.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of get a feel for who this guy Penguin is in this movie, because 1 minute he's opening the door, Mr. Falco, and let me give you a hand, sir, I'll hold your umbrella for you. And then by the end, when he finds out, you freaking rat, I'm going to kill you, he's going to shoot him, and he turns like that, and there's no loyalty in the mob. We know that for history. But it kind of just sums up who that guy is. He's not loyal, and really all he wants is money and power, which... Yeah.
Two things I really liked about him was the fact that, first of all, he was kind of okay with helping Batman at first. They could just sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah, it was
then after that, he was very nice to Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
He's very hey kid, whatever. He was just it wasn't oh, he's a bad guy, he's going to be just mean to everyone. I really liked how he's put through, and the makeup just had the effect that it felt like a character, because you weren't really seeing Colin Farrell there, even though he was completely there. And yeah, I just liked it. He's kind of intelligent too, the things with the he knew Spanish better than both of them. And what was the other thing? It's not really directly related to his character, but the world's greatest detectives.
Yeah,
I just those little snippets, and then the car chase scene was epic.
Oh my god!
I was going to brought along with him.
Yeah, let's go into that, because that Batmobile is possibly maybe my favourite on-screen Batmobile. See the fact that it's like a muscle car, but you've still got the awesome engine at the back.
The fire effects, the noise, the sound design.
The the introduction of the car as well, where you just see the headlights go
Yeah.
and you hear the noise, you see the engine, and you're like,
And but it still feels somewhat amateur. Like it doesn't feel that like as much as I kind of did like Ben Affleck's Batmobile, it felt very Tony Stark. Whereas this one feels very Grease Monkey built in a garage.
it's a car. It's not equipped with like missiles and rocket launchers and autopilot and all. It's just a car that has bulletproof windows, a high-speed engine is to get Batman from point A to point B.
And it felt really agile. It felt like it could move. Whereas, like, that was my problem kind of with the Tumbler, because it's a tank and it's so big and chunky. To actually have any proper chase scenes, they had to use a Batbike, because that is agile. But whereas here, you've got a car that you can have exciting chases with, and it can crash through barriers and go over ramps, and it doesn't feel... I don't know, it doesn't feel like a big tank. It feels like something that can move and you could chase a criminal if you have to. And it was awesome.
To me, it felt weighty, but I think it was kind of like during it, and like when you notice what was happening, and then you said the fire starts building up. To me, it's kind of like the sound design, the kind of restraint that we'd seen so far was the first time we'd actually seen it properly in action. But then when it was happening, it was just a car chase. It was like, when is the last time I've seen one car chase another car be this interesting?
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is just down to the sound design, the way it was built up in the story, the restraint we've seen up until that point. It's like a real meaty moment.
I knew it was coming, but that the trailer shot where it goes through the fire and all that, fantastic. Even better. Like, it's amazing. Obviously, I seen it. I was like, it's so cool. But see where you just see him go through it, and it's just like,
and the score.
The picks up, and then
the score was phenomenal. Michael Giacchino's score.
I've been humming it every day, like all day since.
Phenomenal. I listened through it, and it's phenomenal.
That's the other thing about the score. Who would have? I know this version of Bruce Wayne is somewhat based on Kurt Cobain, but who would have thought that their Nirvana song would make such a clever motif for a Batman movie? Like the way they use something, not just the song itself, but the way they use shades of that through the score and Ave Maria. Who would have thought these two songs would work within a Batman score? But because that's the thing, like the character itself and like the Batmobile and the Batsuit, the more that we do, the more reboots we do, it becomes to the point where, like, how is this
less impactful, isn't it?
How can you do something new with a character that's been around for 20 years, and all these different directors, and all these different actors? And it's the same with the score. We've heard so many Batman scores that it's like, how do you do something new with it? And it's apparently by incorporating Nirvana and a hymn.
What's the guy's name? Michael
Giacchino.
Yeah, because he does the Spider-Man films too, and I think Doctor Strange. But like, I like how Danny Elfman, I think I might have mentioned this before in the previous pod, Danny Elfman did the original Spider-Man and the original Batman, and now Michael Giacchino.
He's doing both of those.
He's doing both of these. Yeah. Sorry, it's not Giacchino, is it?
Giacchino.
Giacchino or Giacchino.
But it also feels quite familiar, like.
Yeah.
It's a little bit the fucking Imperial March.
I've seen people do the mashups, and they do the mashups.
Well, that scene at the start when Batman walks in the subway, when Batman walks out the shadows, is very reminiscent of Darth Vader. And then that first scene.
See all of the scenes where he was emerging out the shadows. I was like, that first 10 minutes, man, where he's talking about, I can't be everywhere at once, but where I am. And
I did feel a bit Rorschach right enough, but that's okay.
True, but I was it kind of worked though,
But just talk about the shots with the dark. That scene where he comes out the lift and the iceberg lounge and there's no lights and it's just the gunshots. That put me in mind so much of the scene in Rogue One where Darth Vader ignites that lightsaber. And walks along the corridor and nobody can stop him. Same way, except this it's the hero rather than the villain. But that pure put me in mind of that shot, and then it turns out, see, Greg Fraser, the guy that shot this, I knew previously that he'd shot Dune as well. He also shot Rogue One. So that's why the shots echoes the cinematography and stuff.
I loved the bit in the left that I was like, I know exactly where the fuck he's going to be, and it's going to be fucking amazing because they haven't done it in this film yet, and it's the fact he's fucking posted up on the roof, drops down. I'm like, I was waiting on it the whole film. Every time we came across goons, I'm like, he's got to do the classic thing where he drops down onto someone, and it just works so well, especially with that scene. That was like, I don't know, there were so many great parts of the film. There's a reason why I'm at this point where I'm at 8.5 at 9 out of 10, and 8.5 kind of 8 out of 10, because I definitely thought on a second watching I'll definitely appreciate it even more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I definitely thought the shot composition was amazing.
I also think when you're watching a movie like this, where it is like a mystery and there's clues, there's a wee part of your brain. The first time you watch it, there's a wee part of your brain. As much as you're enjoying the film, trying to work out right what's going to happen, what's this answer to this clue, what does this mean, where's the next scene? You know, you've kind of get that going. See the second time you watch it, because that's gone and you know what's going to happen. You can just watch the film and appreciate the writing, the cinematography, the acting. You know, and you don't really need that. You know, spit your subconscious being like, right, okay, you know what's next. And that's why I enjoyed it the second time, because the first time there was a wee part of me trying to work out where it was going, whereas you know the second time you can just enjoy the film for what it is.
Yeah, see, I'm not never great at puzzles, so like I kind of just gave up straight away. I'm like, okay, whatever. But one thing they kind of introduced, and I can bring back Alfred a bit. Alfred is helping him deciphering the clues. But when did he get the cipher? He got that already, didn't he?
He gets the cipher at the scene of the first murder, the very start. He gives him the card with the owl and the cipher along with it, which is very.
The cipher's on the back, and is there kind of things scraped into each card then that gives them more cipher bits? Or
no, it's just the one.
The cipher on the start.
Cipher once,
They don't. Even though Zodiac put a cipher with every crime, you know, this character's.
Oh, that is a different one, yeah. So I just missed that, and then I was like, when? Then I was thinking back that the first shot,
I love
the first murder.
The contact lenses were amazing, by the way. I was a really massive fan of that. I was like, okay, that would make sense because you wouldn't be able to have any of the fucking evidence, would he? We'd have to take the shot, rotate it, print it out, use that kind of stuff.
I thought it was a
No, just like the design of the technology as well felt really grimy. Like it was almost modern technology, but at the same time not.
Yeah. Well, again, that's what I like. That's what I like about Batman. How it doesn't really have a set time. You know, it could be just now. It could be 20 years ago with some modern technology. It's not exactly futuristic, but it's not exactly Gothic Victorian either. It's somewhere in between. You know, and that film really nailed that. Kind of like the animated series really nailed that tone. I think extremely well.
I thought it might have been a plot hole with the eyepieces that when he's doing it, when he's taking it off, he actually has to put it on a thing to display the images. But with Catwoman, he's able to replay it. I was like, well, he was getting a feedback from that, so it was obviously set up a little bit differently. But speaking of the kind of look of it, did you recognize your home city?
Oh, the last 10 minutes of the film when on the bike scene.
Yep,
in the graveyard. That's Glasgow.
That's it.
Is it just that? Is it not more? No.
No, I think there was some more, but they're
the church
close-up shots of a
memorial.
Wall.
That's Liverpool. So
someone mentioned it. Liverpool
so
too.
the memorial scene for the mayor is Liverpool. All of the rooftop scenes where it's the two of them where the bat signal is, where it's like Cedar Kyle, that's also Liverpool as well, or Birmingham, I think. The last 5 to 10 minute shot of that one singular shot when they go for the graveyard, that is all you can see off in the distance. I'm pretty sure they didn't edit it that much because I'm like, I recognize that. It's all
big
like
bridge coming out of they go over a big bridge.
That's a bridge of size.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought there was a lot more to it.
That whole there, that
maybe
whole
like the bridge in Rome. Yeah.
A lot of the. Did you say
bridge of Venice? Whatever.
Were you about to say close-ups down of walls? Some of the walls there in some of the churches look really fucking.
I think there's a couple of reaction shots where certain characters turn around, which I think were shot in Glasgow, but they are like they're that much of a wall. So
we've got Batgirl anyway. Batgirl's fucking 80% in Glasgow.
But listen,
the film it's still going on. The filming.
I really like the fact though that I didn't. I was a bit worried that I was going to be like, oh, it's just Glasgow, like. Which I see every day, you know. I think that would have took me out of it a wee bit. I like the fact that it was an amalgamation of these different Gothic cities, and it felt like a mythical, fictional place.
I appreciate it wasn't just Chicago, like in The Dark Knight. It was actually, as you said, it feels like its own individual character, and it feels like Gotham City. Like it had the subways, it had the historical with the modern. Like
that was something else I really appreciated. Like in the comics, Gotham as a character in of itself, and I feel like they really translated that well in the film. The site itself felt like a character. Paul Dano's Riddler, he was the kind of main antagonist. How did you feel about him?
Oh, okay. I liked him. Okay. However, I felt like it was channeling a lot of energy of Hush.
Right.
Like it felt to me a little bit like an amalgamation of Hush and the Riddler.
Right.
And I honestly thought they were going to pull the carpet. They were going to be like, "Oh, he's the son of Edward Elliot," because Edward Elliot makes an appearance in the film.
Yeah.
And I was like, I felt like that fully was going to be
Right.
a plot twist thing, and I was like, I'm so glad they didn't go. I mean, they might go for that in the future, but it felt like it was its own version, and it was incredible. However, I felt like there were certain elements that kind of made it worse for me. I felt like it was. I spoke to a friend of mine who is like trying to be a social worker, and he was like, a lot of the stuff is like autism coded and stuff like that in terms of the way how he freaks out and stuff like that as a character.
Yeah.
And I felt like it could have been done with a little less of that, and a more that he was actually a psychopathic person,
Right.
rather than someone with that sort of like that kind of thing. And it was like I had this conversation. I was like, it's fully right, because there are moments where this Riddler at his best is best when he is fully crazy behind the mask.
Mm.
And I wish there was just that kind of Patrick Bateman thing where he takes off the mask and is really cold and calm and collected, and by putting on the mask is this absolute fucking crazy person, in my opinion. But that's the only issue
That's
I'd
an
look
interesting
at.
take. What about you, Jerd? Did you enjoy?
I think he kind of was like, maybe it's just that when without the mask on, he just looks like Paul Dano and a lot of like Prisoners. He could be dressed the exact same. Now, maybe it's a while since I've seen Prisoners, and he isn't that similar in it. But he just kind of felt like, okay, you're Paul Dano, you can play crazy characters well. Just do that again. Just do your thing, and we'll. So yeah, it didn't feel crazy different. But no, I haven't seen any of his previous films that recently. But I kind of just felt like he was doing stuff he'd done before, which is great, but it didn't feel that different. I liked when he did kind of get a bit loud and up, like he would. I think there was two different points. Sometimes he was getting more theatrical, and other points he was literally just freaking out and telling people to shut up, and kind of like having a attack of some sort or thing. I did think he was fantastically creepy. Yeah. The fact that he thought he was doing it with Batman.
Yeah, that was what I really liked.
Which I know there's a lot of Dan, you tagged me in a thing about 7 where there's a lot of references to 7. If I'm right in remembering, in 7, what's his fucking name?
Kevin Spacey.
John Doe.
Kevin Spacey.
John Doe, yeah.
He didn't really think the cops were working with him. That was more of a sinister plot, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So in this, you really felt, I think, like that Paul Dano literally thought Batman was working together.
I also thought the intelligence of this Riddler as well. So this was the other bit in the film that I thought they were going to push forward with, is see the moment where he thinks he's uncovered he's Bruce Wayne. I was like, oh my, I was like, fully, I was like, oh my god, this would be an incredible, like, if they do it, I was like, this would be an incredible twist where it's like, he knows he's fucking Bruce Wayne. And then that moment where he's like, oh no, I just wanted to be with like you as the Batman, he doesn't know, and I'm like, oh my god, like that was a genuine moment of tension where I was like, holy shit, like, because Riddler is the only guy who's figured out, one of the only people in the comics who's figured out Bruce Wayne as Batman before,
but doesn't care, isn't it?
Doesn't care. But this one I feel like would go off his I think he'd be go off his rocker. It'd be fucking.
I thought, alright, so I'll get into how I felt about him in a second, but I really enjoyed that scene. I enjoyed that wee moment of tension. I've just tagged in that thing, Massimo, with the 7 similarities. Interested to see the side by sides. But yeah, his decision to, like, in the comics to not expose Bruce Wayne is because it's what's the point of a riddle that everyone knows the answer to, and it's the same with the Joker. It's like there's a few times where the Joker's, they'll be fighting Batman, him and his goons will be fighting Batman. Batman will be in the ground. One of the goons will go to lift the mask off, and Joker will go, "Oh, what you doing? That will ruin the fun." Like, I don't want to see who. If he's just a guy, who cares? He has to be this. He has to be this mythical creature that's a god running about this city. Otherwise, it's no fun. And I think that's what these guys get off on. These kind of the Zodiac, right? The point that in the Zodiac, the thing about the most dangerous game of all is man. The most dangerous animal to hunt is a human. Take that up a notch. The most dangerous animal to hunt is a superhuman. Which basically Batman. I know he's not literally a superhuman, but that's
in the eyes of the Gotham citizens, he is.
That's kind of scene. So I really like that kind of aspect, and that's why even when, although I agree that scene was well played out, where it was like for a minute you're like, oh shit, he knows, and then it's like, oh no, he doesn't know. Even if he did know, I would have liked to have seen him be like, don't worry, I'll not tell Andy. That would ruin the fun. I think that would have been a really effective kind of way for him to go with it as well.
Because of the hatred for Bruce Wayne, though, I don't think it would have went down like that. It would have, within the context of this version of the Riddler, I think he would have like fucking like freaked out. And I wish there had been that a bit more of a difference between the two. Like, it's just that on with the mask on and off, he is just a fucking nutcase.
Yeah.
Whereas I wish that it was Norman Bates, not Norman Bates, guy American Psycho, Christian
Patrick
Bale,
Bateman.
Patrick Bateman style, where it's like there is that strict dichotomy between there's a psychopath and then there's a crazy person. Do you know what I mean? There's that kind of fine line between the two, and both, in my opinion anyway, with the mask on. But again, very well acted and very well performed by Paul Dano, in my opinion.
I love this version of the Riddler.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
There's nothing that I was chased about it. I think Paul Dano, yes, he's played a psychotic character before, but he's so damn good at it that he was the perfect choice to play this version because he's obviously modelled after people like the Zodiac, who are 100% unhinged psychopaths. That was something else I really appreciated, was the comparison to real world crimes, because when he puts the bomb around Gil Coase's neck, there's a documentary on Netflix called Evil Genius, and that this is real. This group of people captured this guy. Well, it's speculated whether they captured him or whether he was involved. But anyway, this guy walked into a bank with a bomb around his neck and asked him to empty the vault, and then eventually the police chased him out of the car park, and the bomb went off and killed him. That's what the documentary's about. So yeah, the fact that they're referencing all these real life psychopaths and crimes, I thought was really effective, and again helped it feel realistic and grounded, and dark.
Do you think that's like, so? From my understanding, like the Zodiac killer did clues and all that kind of crack.
Yeah, so
is that the main link to the Riddler? That like the Riddler, because my understanding of the Riddler is mainly just from the cartoon. And that, like, he just makes riddles, and like I guess he maybe does some explosives and stuff too. But like, is that the main link, or did the comics change him from being?
I don't know if there's ever been a Riddler this dark.
No, I think maybe the Arkham games.
Yeah, even then, even trophies, these clues, it's still silly. Like, I've not seen a Riddler this dark. But yeah, I mean, the Zodiac, he sent cards to the police the way that he leaves cards for the Batman, and that's
there's another one as well that sent floppy disks as well and stuff like that. That what's his name? I'll come back to me, but it was like the floppy. Floppy disk. No, he was like he sent floppy disks and stuff like that, and it was a whole thing. That's how they caught him, was through his digital footprint or his floppy disk, because it was a whole thing where he said, "Oh, can these be traced?" The police went, "No, they can't be traced," and he sent them, and they could actually.
Oh yeah, that's someone came up with that recently. My nephew made a really good point, and it kind of links back to the car thing of like, he felt that while he liked the film an awful lot, he felt that they had to really try and push in the mass shooting at the end to actually make the Riddler seem like a bad guy, because he was just kind of killing corrupt people. And that like, when you put that against Batman, who's like not supposed to kill people, but then has this really dangerous car chase, and probably a lot of people died in that car pile up.
See, I don't think they ever state that Batman never kills people. They just say he doesn't use guns.
Yeah,
they clarify that this Batman doesn't use guns.
Yeah,
the whole killing people thing they never quite clarify.
But he stops Catwoman from killing that cop.
Yeah.
And from killing Falcone or Falcone, I think is how. Sorry, you're Italian here.
They pronounce it as Falcone, but it really should be Falcone.
I think it gets pronounced once as Falcone. I think someone says Falcone at some point. I was only saying when I watched it, I was like, they just pronounce it different.
It should be Falcone because of it's the end of the word and the use of the E with like, it's a certain. I'm not a massive linguist, but my dad's explained it before, the way how it's like a CH in Italian makes a sh sound, and certain letters together in Italian make different sounds. So it's Falcone rather than Falcone. It's the same as like, because like buongiorno or buongiorno. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Like, there's like a difference in pronunciation because of accent. So I think sorry, I fucking spent ages to break down Falcone's name.
No, because Sal from Comic Pop. I was sure he said it was the other way.
I'm certain that it is Falcone, but it could easily be Falcone. But I guess Italian American is the whole thing where it's like second generation names change, that kind of thing. Pronunciation change. But again, I could be entirely wrong. I'm just doing from my own personal experience. But it is this weird thing. I do agree with you. The fact so that's my biggest issue is see the bit where all the bombs went off.
Uh-huh.
I felt like it lost a little bit of its tension, but then it kind of gained it back again when you find out, the whole city of Gotham's now flooding.
So, I love the Riddler, right?
Yeah.
Just to finish what I was saying about that,
Yeah.
I thought he was terrifying when he had that mask on. And the way that he in those videos, when he's kind of forcing these words to come out of him, and it feels like a demonic presence that's saying them. It really was terrifying.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Sound again where he's just like, raising pitch, it makes him comfortable.
And then, well, that's the thing. When they take the mask off at first and you see him in the cafe, he's just a wee kind of wimpy guy with glasses. But the way that he smiled at Batman when he sees him through that glass and he gives that smile, it's
horrifying.
It's equally warm. It's like, obviously he does feel a kinship with Batman, but it's equally terrifying and threatening. And you don't really know how to take it.
That fucking cafe shot shouldn't have been in the trailer.
Ruined
it. And it's a good shot to put in a trailer if it wasn't at the very end of the fucking film. They just took. You're like, he's in the cafe now.
But that, and then what you're saying, Massimo, about the scene at the end when he's on like 4chan or whatever, and he's like, "Hey guys, thanks for the videos in the comments." But I do again, although that did get a laugh the first time, in that first showing, it is also though a mirror of real life. These people like Anonymous and stuff that can be kind of terrifying when you or the whole storming the Capitol Hill thing that happened, the QAnon storming the Capitol Hill and all that.
Yeah.
These people, when it comes down to it, are just, if they were on their own, are just kind of weird, awkward people. But it's when they're sending out a message and they're together when they become a threatening force. And I think that was kind of illustrated well, and again made them feel more real.
I think, especially with that, around that kind of last half of the scene as well, there is a massive, I think, motif of class in this film as well that keeps coming up.
Yeah,
and
class
I think
debate's a big part of it.
Mostly illustrated by the fact that when Martinez walks in and sees Batman with the carpet thing, and he's able to identify it as being like, Bruce Wayne's not going to fucking know that's a cut.
No,
I think a private carpet.
He's never left a carpet in his life. He's a millionaire.
He's carpeted too. But the Martinez, who's like, a Hispanic community, that kind of thing, a working class guy, but my cousin works with him, and I'm like, that is such a smart way to bring in that idea.
Because Batman he does have his blind spots when it comes to, as you're saying, the working class and stuff. Yeah,
and it is that thing of, it just shows that dichotomy of like, Bruce Wayne as Batman could not be anything without the people who have him who help him out. The same way the Riddler is probably not as strong a message without the QAnon nuts and stuff like that. Exactly.
But so I loved that shade of the Riddler, right? And then we had also the scene in the prison where it was very Hannibal Lecter, and we've kind of spoken about that already.
God, the fucking the reveal, the sequel baiting at the end is my biggest issue.
We'll get to that in a second. So you've got that, and then I actually really liked the scene where the bombs go off and Gotham gets flooded, because there's been so many, I feel recently with so many superhero movies, there's been so much mass destruction that's never really been, the gravity of it's never really been focused on. Man of Steel knocked down half of Metropolis. Okay, they kind of honed in a wee bit at the start of Batman v Superman, but that was in hindsight. And again, Avengers destroyed half of New York, and
or
they didn't feel the repercussions for that until Civil War, which was years later. Whereas here, you get an immediate repercussion from the man on the street's perspective. Holy shit, these walls have all just blown up and water's flooding the city.
That's what I was going to say, Dan.
The severity of it.
There was is that when the bombs went off at first, I was like, okay, it's kind of a cop out. We're like, okay, they're going to explode. But as soon as you say that, it introduced that element of the walls collapsing, and I guess the societal collapse itself, and everyone having to go to this one area, I was like, that's a fantastic way of bringing back an attention to it. That kind of latter half of the scene as well is, I think, quite interesting and quite cool. And I think, as I said, I had some issues when, when you have Batman fighting against 20 people with guns. I'm glad you were able to see that he wasn't able to just shrug off every single bullet.
Yeah,
it was like he got shot. Okay, shoulder, fine. Double barrel to the chest, he'll go flying back 20 feet and be wounded, and I'm like, right, that's cool, because it shows that he is a normal human being, that if he gets shot, even if he's wearing bullet-resistant armor, it still impacts him.
I thought it'd be more people. And actually, first of all, that place is the worst place to go if there's a flood.
Yeah.
If you're standing up by the doors and the water breaks through, it's just going to knock you back into a big pit.
Yeah.
I thought it was very stupid.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But
God
then
damn you, Gotham's
there was like 500 followers. So when that scene was coming up, I was like, oh shit, that's going to be 500 people. So it's kind of funny to see that 20 lads showed
Yeah.
up.
Well, that's the other thing again. Online, you're like, yeah, I'll go to this night out, and I'll go to here, or I'll go to bar, and then when it comes to it, you're
pretty
like,
realistic.
yeah.
10 lads. I just to we can circle back to it. I thought it was pretty. It was pretty intense. I guess I would have expected. I thought they were just going to start shooting fish in a barrel, but they didn't really. They only kind of shot a couple of people.
Yeah.
It's even if it only was 20 people, it wasn't
as brutal as you thought it would be. Where it would be.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a bloodbath, completely. And then, interestingly, going back to not to be insensitive about it, but someone else had mentioned in another review how when the Joker came out after the mass shooting at the Dark Knight screening or Dark Knight Rises screening from the Joker killer, that there literally was a mass shooting in this, and just kind of it's in at the very end of the film. It's strange.
It's a weird one, I think, because obviously that is kind of associated with the character of Batman and that Nolan series of films. But I feel like it's handled fairly well.
Is that your dog?
Yeah.
Jesus, man, I don't think I must have seen your dog before. I was like, it's a really big dog. I thought it was a pillow or something. I wasn't sure.
Cat Russell.
He's Totty.
He's big boy.
I could hear the patter outside the door, so I thought
he's podcast shy.
Yeah, I just think that it was a wee bit. I guess it's a wee bit tone deaf, but at the same time, it fits in with the character, and it is that thing of you can't just shy away from something like that.
Yeah,
but especially within the context of the film.
I think. Oh shit! He went back into seconds.
I thought the adrenaline was fantastic.
Oh, see the bit where the explosions happen, you just fucking drop them down, you can see the cape and full fucking thing.
Yeah.
Oh, the Batman wingsuit, by the way, fucking stupid. Not a massive fan of it. It was a bit weird. Looked a bit ridiculous, but I enjoyed the scene.
So the wingsuit itself aside, I really liked that shot where Patterson was just at the very top of the screen and under him was just below him, and it really gave you that kind of sense of almost vertigo when you were watching.
And he hits the bridge,
and then the fact he falls and bounces. That happens in Batman Year One and Earth One, and it's the kind of moment of this guy's not perfect. He will slip and fall and hurt himself. He's not infallible. He will make mistakes. Just so if that's just kind of spoke about the ending. I don't know if we want to move on to the sequel bit that Mass was talking about.
I think we might have the Falcone and Catwoman's resolution. We kind of skimmed over that.
Yeah, I definitely thought that was a fantastic thing. I enjoyed having I thought the character, I said, the actor who played him, I can't remember his name.
John
Turturro. He is a fantastic actor and played that very terrifying but strong but deadly kind of thing. And this is a mob someone who, even his name strikes fear into people.
Yeah.
In a similar way to the Batman. The Batman's name strikes fear into people with some parallels that you could draw.
Yeah.
But I definitely agree it was a really interesting thing because obviously I haven't read Long Halloween in about 10 years when I was really young, and so far probably pushed out for more modern comic book storylines, so I forgot that that's something that appears in that storyline. I thought it was done masterfully, and I like the fact as well, the whole thing bringing Falcone into the light was really cool, and the idea of him getting shot, and I really like the idea that was his endgame, and I thought the characterization of him was great.
What I thought, just when we talk about the gangster characters, I thought it was interesting how much of a presence Sal Maroni was, and he wasn't actually in the movie.
Yeah, I think that's another thing for maybe a sequel as well.
The fucking show, the Gotham or Arkham, or maybe the same.
Penguin's getting his own series, we know that. He's getting his own HBO show. But Sal Maroni in the comics obviously is famously the guy that threw the acid in Harvey Dent's face. He's the one that kind of creates Two-Face.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they're possibly, and obviously Gil Coulson's dead, so Harvey Dent
I think
the next DA,
because arguably, if you're following police procedures, he might be due for a retrial because the way the evidence is obtained. Of him busting was a setup. It was a sting. It's like arguably, I think I'm not an expert in the law, but I think in terms of certain judicial systems, they could easily work at this. Technically, the evidence obtained in this was obtained unlawfully and non-culpably, so he's worth a retrial. and then you have Harvey Dent become district attorney, and then you have that kind of stuff because it's a killed Ghost instead.
Yeah,
and I think there's
kind of goes that Wire kind of vibe of like following actual procedurals.
Yeah, where it's because it makes sense. That can make sense. You could arguably work that into the show where it's like the rebuilding of the GCPD, and it's like, well, all of these cases now fall flat on their faces because the way they were prosecuted by the time was by a corrupt judge, a corrupt DA. There's like a backlog of stuff.
It all gets thrown out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to go on to like what we think the sequel's going to be, but first of all, let's talk about that last scene with the Joker in the next cell.
Sorry. No. Unnamed prisoner.
So, Mass, you obviously have a fair problem with it.
I just think that, okay, so my problem has actually since technically been corrected because Matt Reeves said that he came out and said that as another scene that was cut from the film.
Yeah.
That involved the Joker.
Yeah.
That would have made more sense as to why he was in the end. And that was my main issue when I watched it. I was like, okay, I mean, if he'd been teased throughout the rest of the film, maybe it would have been interesting.
The only other reference I noticed was the gang at the start had dark eyes and a smile drawn on. So
kind of Joker
you could kind of construe that maybe the Joker was active at one point. Yeah. That he did create somewhat of a following. Batman put him away. That's where we pick up here.
Matt Reeves is that there's a whole scene missing that is similar to the Killing Joke,
right?
Where he has a full-on conversation with the Joker,
right?
Batman does.
Yeah, it's a full-on.
Yeah. I think it might be in the Blu-ray release.
Yeah, he literally said he was like, we had to cut it out for time. You had to cut that scene out for time.
See, what I was kind of confused by and there's kind of two separate points here, but the last guy of the Riddler gang, which, as someone said, actually made sense for a henchman, but I thought that was him first because, like, I know, so Barry Keoghan, I should be able to say that. I know, as an Irish person here, so many people mispronouncing it is funny, but I thought that was him first. The last guy, the guy who goes, I'm Vengeance.
I'm Vengeance, right, okay.
Because he's this really weird fucking narrative. I know Batman just bet the shit out of him, but he's this really weird face makeup.
He was, so see the guy in the funeral scene when Bruce Wayne walks in and he says something about how, I'm glad you
Is that him?
Yeah.
I didn't think it was because he looks so different.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think
because he looks like he's got bust nose, like
Batman looks like that, and he's
but he still looks like he has a real hook nose.
I thought that was Joe Chill.
Yeah, it does that vibe to him.
My brain was going to be like, that's going to come back as like that's the secret Falcone. Is like, that's the guy who killed his parents.
Because that guy in the memorial looked very different to me. Maybe more of a rounded nose. I actually thought he looked very Scottish, kind of. I think someone to be in a Ken Loach film or something like that.
It was only the second time I watched it. The first time I didn't pick that up, but when I saw it, I did wonder. So that scene in the funeral when the camera kind of focuses on that guy as Bruce Wayne walks away, I was like, he's going to be being important later on. And then I never clocked it at the end of the first time. And then the second time I watched it, when I saw him again, I was like, that's the guy for the end. And then sure enough, when I saw him again, I was like,
I thought he looked so different.
But there's apparently, as I said, a whole scene missing where when Batman goes to the Joker, who is a serial killer at this point, I think, within the universe of the Batman, and goes to talk to him about the methods and mythologies of another serial killer.
Almost Hannibal Lecter.
And that's apparently missing and was fully shot, fully complete, and they cut it out. And I'm like, why the fuck? That would arguably give that ending so much more punch because we know that guy. He was in earlier in the film, and maybe,
It's so funny that Barry Keoghan's brother tweeted it or put it up on Instagram. Oh my god, my brother's the Joker, and then deleted it like an hour later. So fucking Irish, like. That was gas.
But that was my big thing. Yeah. My big issue there was literally because if they'd had that scene in the film, no issue whatsoever because it's woven through the narrative. But because they have it at the end, I'm like, cool, I guess.
I couldn't tell if he was. At first, like I nearly was like, "Is he Two-Faced?" Because you only get to see the silhouette of his face, but I think he maybe already looks like the Joker.
Yeah, so they explain that he has a disease that is based off of the Man Who Laughs. That's the original basis for the Joker. That is the disease that basically constantly means you have to smile.
Well, the second time I watched it last night, I was really looking at him.
Yeah.
And you can actually see a few teeth exposed in his cheeks. Yeah. So it's as if his cheeks have rotted away somewhat.
Yeah. So if you look, I'll probably send you a photo of, but if you look up The Man Who Laughs, which is the original.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that's based off of, and the guy who has it's got a certain name, but it's the disease.
It's like a
where you
wasting disease, basically.
you can only can't stop smiling.
Um,
But yeah, he looks like
but the
he's got
fact that
B-52
he
Joker.
was disfigured, you only saw half of his face. There was, I mean, I knew it was going to be the Joker as soon as it's the clown thing and then the laugh. But there was, he did have some Two-Face vibes. But listen, I just put it down. That was the one point that it felt like a comic book movie.
Mm-hmm.
I put it down to the fact that it was kind of introduced out of nowhere. I just put it down to the fact that like it's like Batman's parents being shot. We've all seen that.
But
We know this is a
scene...
Joker. Like I didn't personally. I don't feel like we needed that preemptive introduction. But
I think I understand like you can't handhold the audience through it, and you know you're supposed to know who that is. But I feel like within the context of the narrative, it would make a lot more sense for him to have a serial killer that he's already like Hannibal Lecter style, where he goes in and interviews a serial killer, and then that to then make sense as to why like.
I would also enrich the history of Batman's career, I guess. That he's already been.
He's at this for 2 years. He's already taken down one horrible serial killer, which would make sense why Jim Gordon's brought him in.
Yeah,
because it could be like he's only like in theory we don't see anything contrary other than Gordon Brennan that he's only dealt with like petty criminals or like gang crime. But if you have this other serial killer that was active when he was about that he caught, it would make sense as to why. It makes sense as to why he's brought
in. So obviously that sequel bait. What do we think for the sequel? Are we getting a Joker movie? Are we getting No Man's Land because the city's flooded? Are we getting Hush because Hush was teased? Robert Pattinson has mentioned Court of Owls. Matt Reeves has mentioned Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Gil Coulson being dead and Harvey Dent replacing him as Two-Face. You know, there's so many different directions they can go. What do you think?
I think we're going to get a lot of HBO series. I think we're going to get at least 3 or 4, I'd say maybe even 5 HBO Max series before we get another full sequel.
Well, I read somewhere that they're currently writing a sequel, but they're aiming for 2025.
So I feel
3 years away. So that is quite a time to do.
Isn't the just for Mr. I can't go an episode without mentioning Mr. Sunday Movie said that the Gotham Central based series now might be the same as the Arkham series. Yeah. So like I don't know how they're going to really work, but isn't that also supposed to be year one? But it's not. Batman isn't the main character. He'd probably appear in it, but he's not the main focus.
Not necessarily, because I think obviously the thing I said about how that because a lot of crimes were prosecuted with a corrupt police department and with a new mayor in charge that's all about getting justice for the people. I feel like it could be about year one, but I think it might be the fact that it's the reassembling of the GCPD after this massive event where, as Jim says, not all cops are corrupt, but there was a hell of a lot that were.
Yeah.
And there's going to be that reassembling of the GCPD in this no man's land landscape with Jim Gordon at their helm, but also having to reassess all these cases, and there's loads of people that are let off the hook and stuff.
I mean, so I think two of the stories there that I mentioned were Hush and No Man's Land. Both of those stories incorporate multiple villains.
Yes.
So I think if you're going to No Man's Land and have all the villains have their own territory and stuff, the way they do in that comic, that would be a way that they can have the Riddler, escape, or maybe what we're saying about his case not actually going through. You could have the Joker, having his own thing going on. You could also, if you wanted to introduce Mr. Freeze and shit like that, then you could also do that alongside that. And also Hush, much like Long Halloween, is somewhat of a murder mystery whodunit, and who's Hush and stuff. And
would you want to do that again though?
Yeah,
like Hush directly after.
That's the thing where
differentiate.
An issue,
yeah.
I mean maybe they're both Jeff Loeb stories, and they are both good comics. But I could see Hush maybe being. Matt Reeves has also spoken about doing a trilogy. I could see Hush maybe being the third movie.
But maybe it's like teed up and on the shows and the TV series and stuff like that. There's this background figure who's manipulating stuff that is Hush.
Yeah,
I could definitely see that being a thing. I think as well, like this is the start of something very different, and it is definitely DC's attempt to have these distinct different shows that are related to one property, because you've got Peacemaker that is related to James Gunn's Suicide Squad, and then you're going to have all these shows that are spinning off the Batman. Whether or not they're going to be directly related or not is yet to be seen, and I feel like they're definitely trying to, because obviously Marvel are doing the multiverse, but DC are really leaning into the fact that all of these take place on different Earths, and that they're all everything currently in DC is canon, in some way or another. Is what they fandom, especially where they hyped that, and that was a big thing about the Batman. Is the Batman as well was Earth 3, I think, as they confirmed it to be on.
Oh right, okay.
Or they have like this official designation. It's officially it's related to an Earth of some sort. But what they decide to do in the future that basically means that they have basically free reign to do what they want without having other aspects interfere with the the greater DC universe. Unlike
Reeves
Marvel,
said he is not like 100% against the idea of more fantastic, like Superman showing up at some stage. Yeah. Like it's not a closed book. It's not like no, this is completely in its own universe. It's like we'll see how we get there. So we could get. I guess it's in some ways, like I kind of think with this and a Dark Knight, it works differently for Batman because when people say "Oh, this is the best comic book film," and I was just kind of getting away from the sequel part, but Spider-Man is a very comic booky film. This is a very good film based on a comic book, but there's also comics of Batman that are in the exact same tone, so it's kind of a little bit different than what you normally think of superhero stuff. Like I know a friend of mine just loves the idea of Batman being in his own world and not dealing with anything supernatural.
I think the Arkham series definitely were able to, the Arkham series of games were we're able to toe the fine line between the two, where you have Batman's rogues gallery that is literally Mr. Freeze and a giant Cryogex and Poison Ivy and Scarecrow and Calendar Man and Killer Croc and all of these characters, and make references to the greater DC universe, your Flashes, your Wonder Women and stuff, without bringing them in, or at least there's the whole Suicide Squad game. But regardless of that, the initial Arkham trilogy are a great example of showing that you can have implications of a wider universe without having those characters feature, instead of completely annexing them off like the Nolan trilogy did, where they weren't allowed to use any aspect of the greater DC universe.
In terms of that shit, I really Superman fans might switch off right about now. I think Superman is most interesting when he has a side character in a Batman story. That is my favourite Superman. Like, see in Hush, where he's literally just there to be punched by a kryptonite ring. Like, that is my favourite iteration. So being this guy that turns up and Batman is like, oh, here's this dick again, we need to deal with him. Like, and that is my favourite kind of version of Superman. Rather than, don't get me wrong, I like some Superman stories. I like For All Seasons. I like, Grant Morrison's Superman. But my favourite version of Superman is as a kind of side character in the Batman stories. That said, I really like when Batman's a side character. That is why I'm looking forward to the GCPD show, because this idea of focusing on a police procedural while there's this masked vigilante cutting about the streets, I think will be a really interesting perspective on the character.
I love the idea if there's a scene in that show as well where it's all of the cops who are sharing their theories about Batman.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh yeah, he's this big 6 foot. I heard that he was a fucking demon. That
some people think he's like an actual monster.
Yeah, it's like, man, I don't want to come across like that. I would really be interested in seeing like that, because it's like people.
How do other people see him?
Yeah, I do see him as this mythical figure. It's like, he's just some freak in a bad suit. You go to Arkham Asylum, that kind of thing. But I would love, as you said, to have those have him play a background part, or like not necessarily appear fully in it, like even if we have like 1 or 2 scenes with Pattinson, or even no scenes with him, but just like him and his implication in implied existence is would be incredible part of the series without maybe involving him, just this mythical figure.
Talking about darker grounded stories, the graphic novel Joker, it's just called Joker by Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo, that really just focuses on the Joker, him getting out of Arkham and trying to restart his criminal empire because he's been away for a few years and he's having to kind of get money together, and it's very kind of practical and realistic kind of gangland story. Batman only shows up for a few pages at the end and has basically no lines, and he is just this terrifying figure perched on a rooftop or the top of a wall looking down, and it's like, oh shit, the Batman's here. And especially it kind of focuses on one of Joker's goons and how he sees both the Joker and Batman as these two insane, almost mythical figures in his city. And it's really interesting to see it from a normal person's perspective, how they would look at these people. And I hope that GCPD TV show kind of captures that tone and that idea.
Definitely agree. I want to move on to kind of where it ranks within the other Batman films, or have we got any final thoughts about the Batman itself overall, the ending?
I'm happy to move on. I mean, I'm still right there at a 9 or a 9.5. I don't know if any of your ratings have shifted since we've kind of hashed this out.
Back over, no. Slight sidebar. Trevor from EastEnders.
Yeah.
The mask, you know? Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the fucking Officer Kinsey, the guy with the mustache, the guy who Batman breaks his nose. He's an Irish actor who I'm pretty certain has never really been in anything that wasn't TV or film that wasn't Irish or Irish related.
Right.
So like I've other Irish people I know who've seen it, it's like, oh fuck, it is him. Like he was in a lot of Irish films in the 90s and stuff. Good actor, but just never really seemed to get too far outside of Ireland. But it's just really interesting to see him there because, like, even my nephew was like, "Was that Owen Wilson?" I was like, "No, it's like, he's the dad." Did you ever watch Moon Boy, the Chris O'Dowd?
No,
maybe
I've heard of it. I've heard of it, but I've not seen it.
He shows up in a lot of Irish stuff, so it was just very fun to see him there too. The Catwoman, Batman stopping Catwoman from killing Falcone. Again, I thought echoed the Batman Returns, with Batman trying to stop, but in Batman Returns, he's not successful. She still kills the guy. Well, Batman kills people in Batman Returns.
Yeah,
did Batman try and stop her from killing people in the?
Well, are you talking about what 89? Are you talking about
89? 90.
Well, the second of
Batman Returns. Yeah, doesn't he try and stop Catwoman from killing that guy?
Yeah, because she throws herself off the Christopher Walken, right? Christopher Walken's character.
Yeah,
is that his name in Bond?
Yeah, no,
is that Batman?
Yeah, it's
she kisses him with the taser.
Yeah, and then they both get electrocuted.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Batman definitely kills people in the Barton universe fully.
But wasn't he trying to stop her from killing him? No.
Yes, but they both
die.
Yeah.
So
the action just in general, I thought was there's something about that first scene that you seen in the trailer.
Oh my god, yeah,
there's a certain sound you hear. It's like he's punching something like that. I don't know. Just
before we move on, just talking about sequel ideas, we haven't even touched on the fact that he took Venom at one point.
Oh, that was what that was, the adrenaline. Yeah.
Oh, it was a green vial. It was a green vial that he put in his suit and gave him this boost, and it almost killed that guy before Gordon pulled him off him. So I took it as Venom.
I just took it as adrenaline because he put it in his leg too. Well, I think that's where you put adrenaline.
For the uninitiated in the comics, Batman does start losing. He's not able to stop certain criminals. It kind of happens when things step up from being just gangsters to these supervillains, and all of a sudden Batman's like, "Shit, I need to up my game here." So he develops, because he's somewhat a scientist, he develops this serum called Venom.
It's what powers Bane basically.
That's what it.
Batman made that.
I think some versions it makes it. Some versions he finds it, and instead of turning it into the police or whatever, he just keeps it for himself.
Yeah, it's like a chemical compound thing. I think it's like
using it.
He creates his own version.
It's steroids.
Yeah. Well, he obviously has access to the Wayne Tech stuff and all that. But I know for the fact that Bane has it in the comics first, and then I think. I thought he does.
Bane gets it later. So Batman discovers it. I can't remember if he finds it and he makes it, but he discovers it. He starts taking it because it helps him fight these guys, and it is working. He's stopping these people. And then later on, he becomes like a recluse. He ends up in the Batcave for like 4 weeks straight trying to solve a crime. And when he comes out, he's like a junkie. He's really thin. He's growing this big beard.
Really?
Do you know what we're actually? So it's originally based on Our Man's formula from the comics. This was based on. It's based on the 60-minute fucking thing that he has. Our Man's like a member of the Justice League that he's only able to have super strength for an hour every day. Right. It's based off of his thing. Sometime later, a new strain of Venom was developed in Santa Prisa. The scientists who developed this new version experimented on prisoners in the same prison that Bane was held without success until Bane was the first prisoner to endure the procedure. So I think that was during the night.
Oh, there you go.
Following Bane's defeat, various strains of Venom continued to circulate throughout the criminal underworld. One strain developed by the same scientists who originally experimented Bane became popular among professional athletes.
Because I always tie it to this thing about Batman creating his own villains. Batman started taking their steroids, then realised I was making him violent. He was almost killing people and stuff, and he was like, "Oh shit, I'm going too far." So he kind of goes cold turkey.
A bit like another Venom we know.
So it's actually we're actually both right then. Because Our Man's formula is the version that Batman uses, and then there's a secondary one that Bane gets experimented on with.
Right.
So Bane has it before, and then Our Man Bruce develops on Our Man's one.
Right.
Within the comics. So it's both of us. Well, that's the history of it anyway. Because it's So the idea is, it says that Batman became addicted to the drug while searching for a way to cope with physical limitations and imperfections, forcing him to eventually lock himself in the Batcave to detox himself when he realised on how dependent he had become of the drug.
So, are we setting up Bane here as well?
Uh,
Are we talking No Man's Land with a Bane as
I
well
think
as
so,
Mr.
yeah.
Freeze and
I think,
Joker and everybody else? That's what I'm saying. Like this movie, it is dense. It does cover a lot of. That was my kind of summary as well of this film. Batman v Superman covered a lot of comic ground. It did. It did Dark Knight Returns. It did the kind of coming of Doomsday, and then it did the whole Death of Superman and also Return of Superman, all within 3 years. And it felt super sloppy, super rushed. Nothing felt justified or fleshed out. The audience didn't get a chance to fixate on anything before something else was happening. Blah blah blah. This movie covered almost as much ground comics wise because, like we're saying, there's references to Venom, there's references to obviously Long Halloween, No Man's Land. It's covering a lot of ground, but it does it in a way that's well written enough and paced well enough that you can take it all in, absorb it all, think about it after if you want, but it doesn't affect your enjoyment of the movie while you're watching it. It doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't feel shoehorned in. Well, arguably, you can see the Joker scene does, but for the most part, the elements of the stories that Matt Reeves took from the comics are implemented well here, and even though there's a few different places to take ideas from, they all complement the story being told, as opposed to Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman, which was just, oh, this is fan service, let's put it in. Here it was more carefully chosen, I think, and more carefully crafted to complement the story being told. And I think that's why it was more effective. Even though it was dense, it was a dense 3 years. And obviously, like we're saying, there's loads of different ways you can go with the sequel. But yeah, so we're just going to rank the film now, where we would put it in comparison with the other Batman cinematic outings. I don't really have a ranking in my head for all those movies. I just know that Dark Knight's my favourite. And everything else under that, I guess. But
so we'll do it on the scale of does it, like, where does it fit between the modern, so Nolan trilogy being the base, and then we'll go from there. Where does it fit within the Nolan trilogy of films?
I personally, right, okay, it kind of depends how you're looking at it. If you're looking at it as a film, which I think is probably the best way to look at it, because besides being a superhero story, as a film,
I thought it was a pamphlet,
cookbook.
No, but I mean, rather than being a superhero film, with all the sequel bait and potential for the future, take all that away and just look at this one cinematic experience as a movie. I would rank The Dark Knight higher, just because I think that it more wisely uses its time. That said, there's nothing other than that I can really fault this movie for. And in terms of excitement for the future, I would rank this above The Dark Knight in that sense, because The Dark Knight Rises followed The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises was super disappointing, and it was also the last version of that character we got, whereas this is the first film in a new series, which really gets, I don't know about you, but it gets me excited for the potential that this universe has and this version of the character has. So in that sense, I prefer it to The Dark Knight. It's more exciting, but as a film, just for what's on the screen between the start and the end of that movie, I prefer The Dark Knight. But it's like I'm saying, the fact that it's even close, the fact that we're even having this debate is amazing. The fact that we've got a Batman movie in 2022. And I also did feel to some extent that this movie was needed. Like, see, when you look at the last few Batman movies, I mean, I know we get Zack Snyder's Justice League, right? But before that, we had Justice League, which was garbage. As much as I like Ben Affleck's Batman, that was a garbage movie. And then before that, like I'm saying, Dark Knight Rises was disappointing. So really, the last great Batman movie was The Dark Knight. We could really consider it. Nothing against Ben Affleck's Batman. I like his version, but he just never got the chance to be in a good movie.
Yeah, didn't have a chance to shine.
So, incredible film, and 9.5, I guess. What about yourselves?
Matt, you want to go? Or?
I mean, I'm happy. I'm easy way. I've got a few things I would like to say on it, but it's up to yourself if you'd rather.
Well, I guess I'm influenced by a few things. I've kind of come to hate Christopher Nolan. I don't know, especially since the last Tenet. I just find him very poncy, and I know there's a lot of talk about that online now, about people just going, "Oh yeah, the Nolan trilogy was shit" and all this, and it's like, I think one thing this film has over the Nolan trilogy in general is just after, like, I can't really remember much of Batman as a character in Begins. But in The Dark Knight, Batman is barely a character and his voice is laughable.
Yeah, that was
Then
sorry,
in
just
Dark Knight
one more.
Rises, yeah.
Sorry, just one more. We think add Pattinson as a better Batman than Christian Bale, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue. Sorry to interrupt you, but just want to get that out.
But he's more of a character here. Like, he feels he's the point of focus here. He's more unhinged. Yeah. Like, even though, like, I was kind of saying, I keep calling him Dehan, but he's not Dehan. That's another guy. Paul Dano. Even though, like, I kind of had the feeling like, oh yeah, I've kind of seen him do, like, he's great, but I kind of seen him do that kind of stuff before. It doesn't bother me. Like, obviously we don't get Heath Ledger's Joker, but even, like, looking back on that still seems a little bit like, I don't know, you've seen a million Heath Ledger Jokers for Halloween costumes and stuff. That whole vibe kind of seems a bit, it feels like it dated a lot. And Christopher Nolan's fucking philosophical wank talk. It's not as, like, I mean, especially The Dark Knight is one of the best Batman films ever. Batman is barely in it and he sounds ridiculous. And the costume looks silly. And Pete Holmes destroyed it. So to me, Batman is a real character here. The 89 films, while very iconic and shit, are very daft. I would say this is better than what I would consider probably the best Batman film is Mask of the Phantasm. I don't know, that's so good too. To me, it's live action is probably my favorite Batman. I would probably juggle between the two, but Mask of Phantasm is a bit of a lighter story. I love the length of it. It didn't bother me at all. I was like, yeah, it felt like like you're watching a TV show. It's my favorite live action Batman film. But give me 10 years, I'll be, fucking Matt Reeves. That's my 2 bits.
So being the one who obviously gave it kind of lowest rating coming in here, I think it is a more complete film. Not even interesting. I think it's a more complete film. It's more of a Batman story. It's more of a crime story. It's more of a detective story. It embodies more about the character of Batman. It involves
more than what?
That's what it comes from. More than anything else I've seen before.
Oh, okay.
In my opinion.
Wow. This is a more complete film than The Dark Knight?
I think so, in my opinion. So here's the thing.
Wow.
I know. I'm the young buck on the block, and I'm slinging out opinions here like crazy. Maybe but I think it is a more complete film. Although the length is an issue, in my opinion, it could be trimmed down, but not by much. And even then, it doesn't make that much. It made an impact on me, but there are certain aspects of it that I feel like have to stay in there because it is setting up quite a few things. I feel like for me, especially, the fact this is kicking off a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know how Nolan's films, Batman Begins, pretty good film, probably doesn't get enough credit that it deserves. Dark Knight is seen as the perfect Batman film. Dark Knight Rises is seen as the red-headed stepchild of the series.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Jerd. In my opinion, it is a more complete Batman film, and the fact that from a first outing we've managed to get this, it hasn't taken one film to hone into this idea of the characters. From this perspective of, we got a complete idea of the Batman character from one film where it took Nolan 2 to establish that universe, that world.
I agree, but do you think that's some of that credit has to go to Nolan for establishing that groundwork in popular culture beforehand?
I don't think so. I think we've already seen...
Not just Nolan. I'm talking about Burton, and even Schumacher to some extent. People that put that version of the character, any version of the character out there, they are somewhat responsible for. I don't know if you can credit Matt Reeves alone for that personally.
I'm not giving Matt. I'm just giving. It's less Matt. It's he without. So you see, honestly, I think without the Nolan films, and maybe probably less of a step with, because I feel like without the Christopher Nolan Batman films, this film would still stand on its own because it draws so much of his influences from the comic book background.
Okay.
From your Long Halloweens, from your Year Ones, from your Year Zeros, I feel like
that's fair enough. Though when you're talking about us, but when you're talking about the general audience, I feel like you need to give credit to the groundwork that other directors have done.
That's very fair. But that's a fair thing, but I guess because oversaturation of the character as well. He's appeared in so many things.
Yeah.
In my mind, I feel like it's a fresh experience, but I think it is. I think it's better than The Dark Knight, and I feel like it is the. I think it's a more complete Batman film.
Right, Matt. Though, just to take a wee bit of umbrage, you said earlier that the Joker scene felt shoehorned in and unearned.
I never said shoehorned. I said it just felt like it was sequel baiting. It was less about it being shoehorned. It was more about it that if it had that extra scene in it, it probably would have been like. The only issue I take umbrage with the length of the film is because it could be trimmed down in certain places.
Yeah,
but you could say that
but
about
The Dark Knight never had any of those issues. It never had a moment where you were like, that scene didn't need to be there. That scene felt sequel baited. That scene felt every moment of that film is there to service the story being told in that film alone, which is the difference between the two.
I would say that, but the thing is, this is a first outing, so I feel like, I mean, arguably, if this is as good as The Dark Knight, what's the second one going to be like?
Oh yeah, 100%. That's
what I'm saying.
In my opinion. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That was the distinction I was trying to make at the start.
Yeah.
As a film on its own, The Dark Knight's better, but in terms of the future and what it's setting up and the excitement and the potential, then this is better. I agree.
True. Okay, fair enough. I get that. So I think, okay, in that case, then I'd rephrase the statement to be the more, I'd say, as a great film, probably Dark, but as a comic book Batman film, this film probably takes the cake for me because of how authentic it is to the source material.
And the thing is, this version, while still being able to be somewhat grounded and terrifying and almost psychological horror in parts, and not an MCU film at all in any sense, but not cutting off the comic book elements either. Having being the best of both worlds, having ridiculous kind of disfigured guys in prisons laughing, which is a bit ham, let's be honest, it's a bit silly, but also still being able to reference real life crimes and horrific things that have happened and feel all of it feels none of it feels
it feels earned within the story overall.
So that is the main props I think I give to this version.
Definitely. So I would still rank it higher than The Dark Knight, but for the reasons of it not being a better film per se, but being a better interpretation of the Batman character, and therefore winning out, in my opinion, in that regard.
Fair enough. So I am the only one that doesn't think it's better than Dark Knight. Is that what we're saying here?
What?
You guys both
doesn't think.
You guys both think this is the best Batman movie so far.
Yeah, well, like, if you're arguing that The Dark Knight is better, it doesn't have is a bad Batman.
Yeah,
I'm not necessarily like trying to change your mind. I'm just saying in my opinion, but
I just think objectively, I'm trying to change your mind. Film if the Batman is like not only not as good, but he's actually kind of bad in that film.
But I would also argue that Batman doesn't need to be a key element in a Batman film. I think in this version it helps that he is a real character, and I agree that Christian Bale isn't much of a character in The Dark Knight, but the fact that despite that it's still my favourite Batman film, I think speaks volumes.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
we could argue about this till the cows go home of whether or not this film deserves it. This film, but I think I mean arguably I think we've stated our points, we've stated our cases, and I think it is a better film. Even if I take umbrage with the length of it and the bits of it, I think that because of how well put together it is, you can't really argue of how good a film is.
I like before seeing it in the trailers, and even while watching it now after watching it, it's still kind of it plays in a lot of the same spaces as the Nolan films. It has an awful lot of the same tone. I think really it's a bit the Gotham's grimier. He's more of a detective, but it's nearly like you could nearly take it's another take of there's so much. It shares so much with the Nolan films. And I did see someone mention that no Batman film has ever been made, but I guess it's the same for any kind of reboot. No Batman film has ever been made in a vacuum. They've all been made in reaction to the other, or any iteration of Batman. But that's the same for fucking anything. Yeah. Strange point. We've had 4 Jokers now, and 2 Supermen.
And a partridge.
Just what you're saying about Gotham being grimier than ever, I agree it is in this comic, but I was a wee bit I was a wee bit disappointed in that sense because this is, I guess, a problem with being reviews before you see a movie, like the same what I'm saying about Catwoman. But a lot of folks said, "Oh, Gotham is so great. It's like it's a cesspool. It's a disgusting, horrible place. It's not worth saving." Blah blah. And I'm like, mate, you should live in Glasgow for a while. Like, CGI is bad. It's not that. Like, yeah, okay, it's a bit of a shithole, but I've seen worse places in my own life. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's
take it out to Airdrie at some point.
and Britain, that's like kind of an alright city, to be honest.
It's big. It's big.
Yeah.
the bat of Birmingham.
I think it's because the apartments look so shitty. That's the main thing. And they have that, like, the under the rail. That's why I just assumed it was New York, because I know so little about America. But the under rail carriage, a lot of it takes place under the streets. It makes it kind of feel grimier and like 70s New York films, that kind of thing.
So, last question for you. If this is the Law Halloween, right, does that make the sequel Dark Victory? Because in Dark Victory is when Bruce recruits Dick Grayson.
I would love to see Robin.
Well, there's my question. Could Robin either be the kid that you see at the start?
Yep.
Because he's dressed as a ninja, he has a sword, he's an orphan. Well, he's not an orphan, but his dad's dead. He's perfect bait, but he already trusts Batman because he's the first one that takes Batman's hands when he's leading them all out the water. Or the kid at the start, the gang at the start, and one of the kids has got his face.
I thought that was Signal. Okay. So that is, I think, Duke Wilson, I want to say, in the comics, who is one of the newer members of the Bat family.
But I was going to make a comparison to Jason Todd, because Jason Todd starts off as a criminal and then kind of changes his ways to become Batman's sidekick. So
I'm pretty sure that kid plays Tim Drake in Titans.
He does.
Oh.
He does,
yeah. So, that was a very strange thing if he ends up becoming Robin.
Yeah.
So it's
a different one.
The character I'm thinking is Duke Thomas's Signal, the teenage metahuman vigilante in daylight protective Gotham. Following his loss of the parents' insanity at the hands of the Joker, Duke joined and led the We Are Robin movement. So it's another character who is obviously a POC as well and stuff like that. Like, but not to pigeonhole Robin into that, but the pre-existing character and stuff like that of Duke Thomas could be quite interesting as well as an introduction. But even having him be as a Robin would be quite interesting, and then progress into their own hero, like a Nightwing style kind of thing.
Yeah, well, Bloodhaven, as mentioned, Captain goes to Bloodhaven. And I just think that. Well, also Robert Pattinson said again he wouldn't be opposed to introducing Robin,
like a 13-year-old,
but it has to be like a kid. Yeah,
but he is the funniest motherfucker. Everything I've heard him say is just like hilarious. Like,
but Robin needs to be a literal child. I'm like, yes, I agree with you.
That would be right for the Mayor's kid. He would be the perfect age for that. Come the second movie, So
I think it could be more of a Tim Drake, because obviously Tim Drake is like, still has some of his. I think has one of his parents alive. His dad's still alive. Yeah. But he becomes Robin anyway.
You can't be Dick Grayson unless you're a complete orphan. You have to go and kill your mother before you get this job.
Exactly.
That's like Frank Miller's Batman, to be fair. We're getting the All-Star Batman.
I don't make the rules.
Batman's just shooting his maw like, sorry, I don't make the rules. You said you wanted to be Robin, so... that's all of our thoughts on the Batman. Leave your own thoughts in the comment section. Let us know, is this your favourite Batman? Is this your favourite version of the character / your favourite film? Because I think there will be people that might say this is their favourite film, but not their favourite version of the character, or vice versa. So I think that'll be interesting as well.
And we're just going to leave you with the image of Bruce Wayne gunning down an innocent mother of a child to make sure that he has a Robin.
We always end on a nice cheery note. There's also but we didn't talk about the post-credit scene because really there's not one. But it's a link to a real life website that they go on when they find out that Elle is actually you are, and they go onto the website in the movie. If you type that in, you can find clues online and then go through them.
And it gives
you it's clues to the film. It's not like to do with a sequel.
Well, I think as time goes on, it will become that.
It is actually because updated. There is a few images out there. There's like a zip file you can download, and then the password for it is like in the Thomas Wayne speech in the film that you also can find on the website as well. You add some riddles, you add some clues. It's constantly being updated, and I feel like if we're going to get any new information, have a look at that. If you're smart enough to crack the first riddle, because I wasn't, and I had to go out and outsource this. It's stupid. It's a really stupid riddle. But that's because I'm stupid. It's quite interesting. It's a really cool social kind of bit of viral marketing as well, and it's a really cool thing to check out if you're interested in some even little tidbits and backstories about the character. There's a bunch of stuff about Falcone and the Waynes in there, both Thomas and Martha, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, we'll be back to talk about the Penguin show when it drops, and the GCPD show, and any future trailers for the sequel or whatever whenever we get there. But yeah, in the meantime, thanks, and Mass, I'll let you sign off.
All right, we'll see you guys on the next page.